We have the form right here.
For some, registering to vote is a rite of passage.
It's kind of crazy that I'm old enough to be able to vote and stuff now, which is pretty cool.
Ian Tolanen is a freshman at MSU, and he says he never really thought about voting before.
I remember being 15, 16, I wasn't thinking about voting at that time, but I'm 18, I'm a lot of my mindset's changed.
For his friend Liam McDonald, voting has been on his mind for a while.
My dad's an immigrant from the United Kingdom, and he's not able to participate in elections and things like that.
Whether voting is on students' minds or not, MSU professor Marty Jordan says Generation Z's vote could change the outcome of this year's election.
If we got half of Gen Z voters to turn out to cast a ballot, that would be a sizable uptick for an off-year election compared to past off-year elections.
However, to understand the full effect Gen Z voters could have on this year's election, we have to go back to 2020.
We're going to have a great red wave.
With our voices and our votes, we must free ourselves from the forces of darkness.
Typically, there's an old maxim in American politics, which is that 70% of 70-year-olds vote, 20% of 20-year-olds vote. Well, 2020 turned that on its head because about more than half of young voters between the ages of 18 and 29 turned out to vote.
Well, will this year's turnout numbers match the same as 2020's? Well, with big ticket items on the ballot and on students' minds like abortion and the governor's race, Professor Jordan says that there's a chance, but it's not certain.
But I would be surprised if it reached the 2020 level. I'm just, trying to be realistic here. It would be great if we met those numbers or exceeded those numbers among Gen Z.
Jordan also added, based on partisan registrations, more Gen Z voters favor the Democratic Party. So if more Gen Z voters turn out to the polls, it could tip the scale to favor the Democratic candidates.
If the same proportion of Gen Z voters that show up tend to be Democrats, then you're going to see a pretty big margin probably for Whitmer as well as other Democratic candidates down the ticket.
That is why city clerks like Jennifer Schuster are working hard to get students registered to vote.
Voting is important, so your voice is heard. Everyone who is qualified should exercise their right to vote.
Although we won't know for sure how many Gen Z voters will show up to the polls until after the election, McDonald and Tolanen both say they will be there.
Excited to hopefully be a part of the change that I want to see and more young people coming to vote.